you can actually put yourself in a position where you can actually change your community, and you can actually stop one of your friends from going to prison, and you could be the change that your environment needs. So the Legal Outliers, that's what we're here for, and that's what we're trying to create. Hello, my name is Michael Campbell. So the thing that led me to law school is just realizing that, death can happen so quickly, and before I died, I wanted to have an impact on the world, and I found myself at a place where I have lost somebody who was close to me, more like a childhood friend, like an older brother. Now I'm going into manhood alone. So I found that time to be a very important time for my life, and then I decided that law school was next for me. And I feel like law school has had a big effect on who I've become today and the life changes that I have been making. And I feel that if this day 11/5/16 wouldn't have occurred, then I wouldn't be able to have walked the path that I have. So I've realized that negative things can also have a positive effect on you as well, and I try to keep that in mind, and I just constantly push myself to every limit. And that's when I created the Legal Outliers, and I want to do the same with young individuals and show them that I understand you're growing up in these traumatized environments and things that are happening to you, and unfortunately those things are unfortunate, but there's still positive ways where you could take those negative things and twist it. So growing up in Boston, I realized that the environment I lived in provoked me to do a lot of negative things because that's what I was around. But in Brockton, I realized that my mom's house was more civilized, so it allowed me to focus more on education. But I still found myself hanging with people in Brockton that were just like in Boston as well, so I would say it had a negative effect on me in my younger years. Growing up in that type of environment, I was exposed to a lot of things. I seen drugs being sold. I seen people being arrested. I was in the middle of a raid. I seen people being shot at. I seen people being robbed. I seen a lot of drug addicts. I seen prostitutes. I found crackheads to be normal. I found it to be traumatizing seeing these type of things. But I didn't realize it until I was older that it was traumatizing, because when I was younger it was so normal. So I found that to be challenging growing up in that environment. But I tried my hardest to stay away from those type of negative things though growing up. So now I'm in my last year of law school, and I'm also the Student Bar Association president at my law school. I think some of the challenges I face are growing up in the environment that I grew up in. Sometimes growing up in that environment, you don't take education serious in your younger years. And while attending law school, the curriculum is very intense. So I found myself sometimes struggling in areas that I shouldn't. So I think those are my biggest challenges. Also, I have an 11-year-old son that I take care of as well. So I had him when I was 18. Again, coming from that environment, I didn't understand that having a child that young would have a big impact on my life. I seen everybody around me doing it, so I thought it was normal. So I would definitely say balancing law school and taking care of my child would be my biggest challenges while attending law school. So my plan after graduating law school is to become a sports agent. I wanted to become an NBA player when I was younger. I played in high school, I played in undergrad. But growing up, I realized, because I had my son so young, that basketball wasn't as important as it used to be. So I found myself trying to figure out what was going to be next. So after undergrad, I found myself working, but still trying to figure out what was next. So I started to tap back into that dream, and then I realized I could become a sports agent. And then I realized going to law school would help me achieve that goal. So the reason why I wanted to create the Legal Outliers is because I feel like there's a lot of young individuals in my position. I feel like there's a lot of kids in the inner city and hood where they don't believe that they have the opportunities that they do. And I think that the Legal Outliers, which is a group of law students from different schools, can come into their middle schools, elementary schools, and community centers and give them one-to-one communication and show them that there's opportunities for them just like it is for us. I remember when it was first announced that I was going to be the Student Bar Association president, I was excited, but at the same time I was realizing, like, when I was 16 years old, I didn't think this was possible. So then it made me think, how many other 16-year-olds that come from the same environment that I come from don't believe this is possible? So that's when I created the Legal Outliers. So growing up in two different environments, I feel like it definitely gives me an advantage in law school because growing up in a household where my mom was a CO, then she went to law school and she became an attorney. But that was like in my later years. That was when I was around 18, 19. But being exposed to the environment that I was exposed to when I was younger, I feel it's more helpful than people will realize because law school is all about analyzing things. And when you're growing up in a negative or a bad environment, it teaches you how to analyze situations very quickly because that could cost you your life. So I would say, just piggybacking off that, like an example would be, I feel like my best friend died when I was 15. I feel like if he would have analyzed that situation differently, his life would have turned out differently. And then I feel like I lost another friend when I was 26. I think if he would have analyzed his life differently, things would have been differently. And then my cousin dying, I feel like it was just the environment. I feel like it doesn't teach you how to navigate through. So I feel like those experiences, even though they were bad, I learned to channel them into something positive. So I would say growing up in those environments, the most helpful tool that I had was playing basketball. I found myself constantly going to different basketball courts and meeting different people, which kept me out of a lot of trouble. When you grow up in bad environments and you play sports, it gives you a lot of passes. You don't really get involved in gangs and you don't really get involved in riffraff. So basketball is very resourceful. And I didn't realize it before. Like I said, my goal was just to go to the NBA. Then you start to realize that basketball is the reason why I ended up going to undergrad, just to continue playing basketball. And then I got my degree. And then once I got to law school and I realized basketball wasn't here anymore, I realized how useful it was. And then now I realize, becoming the man that I am, that I didn't need basketball anymore. So that was something I found that was very helpful, going through those trials and tribulations while growing up in that negative environment. So my goal 5 years from now for the Legal Outliers is to just have a big effect on the judicial system. I feel like there's a lot of people who grow up in bad environments that can have a change on the judicial system. I feel like a lot of people that's a part of the judicial system do not realize that sometimes people in certain situations do not have the ability to avoid them. And I believe that some of those individuals deserve chances that they're not being given. And I believe the only way you could give those opportunities and those chances is to have to come from that environment to know what they go through. You cannot read a book that's going to tell you about that. You cannot read case law that's going to tell you about that. That has to come from real life experience. And I feel like a lot of attorneys and a lot of judges and other members of the judicial system don't have that experience. And I feel like there's a disconnect between representation and clients. And that's where I feel like maybe if I can close that gap with the Legal Outliers, starting with the younger generation, maybe they will want to go into the judicial system, or maybe they'll have an idea of what the judicial system is and not see it as such a negative thing, but see it as a tool, and that they could possibly become a part of it. I think it's very important. So my goal is to have all of the members from different law schools come into elementary schools, middle schools, and high school and do panel discussions with the students. Answer some questions they may have, relate to the students so that they can understand that it's possible to go to law school. Also, we plan on doing tours at different law schools for the students. So what we'll do is we're trying to make connections with all of the law schools in Massachusetts so that we can do tours with younger students so that they can see that it's possible, because I feel like a lot of times you have to see it's possible to know it's possible. Also, one of our goals is to go inside some of the courtrooms, because I feel like when you grow up in a bad environment, only time you go in the courtroom is when something negative is going to occur. So I feel it would be something positive to bring young students in there and show them like a courtroom is not only for negative things, or it's not only when you're going to go to jail, because a lot of people in the environment that I come from has this stigma, and sometimes we fear going into court, and sometimes going to court could be one of our biggest weapons. But because what has been instilled in us for so many years, we think once we're in the courtroom we're going to jail. So that's something that I want to take. I want to take that fear away from young individuals so that they can become a part of the system and not become in the system. Right now, the Legal Outliers is made up of a few different students. It's made up of students from New England Law, we have students from Massachusetts School of Law, we have students from Suffolk, and we have students from Northeastern. So right now we are working on a program with each of those schools to see if we can do tours and maybe sell some Legal Outliers products inside those law schools. So the numbers are 11, 5, 16. That was the day my cousin died. We was more like brothers because my grandmother raised us, because my dad had me so young. Most of the time he wasn't around. So this day is very important because this is the day that I watched my cousin actually die. Like I actually watched him take his last few breaths. He was shot 3 times in the stomach, and I felt that day was traumatizing. And I felt like seeing that taught me that I needed to do something positive with my life. And from that day forward, I've been pursuing nothing but positive things. The logo just represents the chains represents the Legal Outliers. So the chain is just showing that, like, even though the man has the gavel in his hand, the chain's representing that he's still held back, you know. And then it shows that even though we have come so far, history is still holding us back, and we need to make changes. So that's what the Legal Outliers is here to do. And I chose to use this logo because I felt like it represented everything that I feel when I go to law school. I feel like I'm understanding the law, and I feel like I'm making a difference at my law school. But at the same time, when I come home, I still feel like those chains are there. And that's something that I'm trying to break free from. So I think that's what the logo represents. And I want individuals to see the logo to understand that, yes, I may be in law school and I may be going into the law field, and, you know, I may become a part of that judicial system, but there's still chains that are locked on other people that come from the environment that I come from. And I never want to forget that. Hopefully I can gain a lot of interest from other law school students, and they'll come on my vlog and tell their story and help the Legal Outliers become something that is very positive and has a big impact on the judicial system. See you guys then.